From Greater Sandton and beyond, get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 206. It's weeks 31 of 2025. I'm Alexander Leibner, and if you're part of the Sandton Times Hour Nation and you're tuning in for another week, welcome to you. If you're new through the door and you've never been part of this hour, well, welcome to you. Find yourself a spot, grab yourself something warm to drink, and be part of the hour as we reach out to Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa, everywhere else in the world. And we're always happy to report that things are all good and well in Sandtonland. Vincenzo, our trusted sound engineer, blending things together again behind the mixing desk for the next hour. Welcome to you. Buongiorno. Buonasera. Whatever time of day it is, wherever you're listening. And I hope you've had a good week since the last time we connected, and we've got another great show lined up for you. A little something for everyone, I think, this week. So who are we talking to and what are we talking about this week? Well, in a bit, I'll be chatting to an author of a new book which looks at the good, the bad, and the unbelievable history of South Africa's railway network. So stick around for that. Then we reconnect with our regular entertainment commentator to talk about some new announcements made by one of South Africa's largest cinema groups. It looks like cinema is alive and well. And finally, if you're into all things health, wellness, and alternative, well, there's an expo coming up for you. Stick around till the end of the hour. We'll be finding out more about this. All this and more coming up, and I'd also like to hear from you. So if you'd like to get in touch, you can send through your questions, comments, and feedback. You can email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times, and many of you have been doing that, and you've also been reaching out and connecting. And also, you can hop onto the website, www.sandtontimes.co.za. And if you're part of our podcast community, thank you very much. And if you're not, make sure you subscribe to the Sandton Times Hour on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, AfroPods, Podcast Party, and so many more. Be sure to like and share it with your friends.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
You know, I love a good train trip, and I really do prefer it to driving and flying at the best of times, be it the Rovos Rail to the Victoria Falls or Cape Town, or maybe even the Bright Line from Miami to Orlando, or maybe even the Gautrain to the airport. And on the odd occasion, I might set up the Lego train to go around the Christmas tree in December when it's time to pull that out. Well, South Africa has its very own railway story to tell, one of grandeur, grit, and great change. Joining me in a bit is veteran journalist, broadcaster, former colleague, and lifelong rail enthusiast David Williams, whose latest book on the railway takes readers on a vivid journey through the golden age and gradual decline of South Africa's once mighty rail network. And from the opulence of the presidential white train and the elegance of dining cars to the economic muscle of goods trains and the grit of engineering marvels that tamed our toughest terrains, this is a story as nostalgic as it is sobering. All aboard as we dive into a journey of tracks, tales, and transformation with David Williams. And David, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you, Alexander. Good to be here.
David, you know, once in a while there's an interview that comes along that really gets me excited, and I think this is one of them, David. And I think you and I share an interesting excitement and magic around rail travel. What inspired you to write on the railway, and how did this childhood experience shape your lifelong passion for trains?
I was a railway child. In Afrikaans, they say spoorwegkind. My father was on the railway. He was an electrician. And he moved around a couple of times. And in those days, you went where you were told. It was a bit like being in the army. You were posted. You might go on promotion or you might go on transfer, but you moved around. And we ended up in a little town in KwaZulu-Natal, as it now is, but Natal then, Escourt, which is on the main highway if you go off between Ladysmith and Moy River in the Midlands. And this was a little railway town with lots of railway employees and lots of trains. There were branch lines to Weenan and Bergville. There was the main line from Johannesburg to Durban with literally over 100 trains a day. And this was within 50 meters of our house. So I don't think my mother enjoyed it very much, all the noise. But for me, it was paradise. So the bug bit then, and then very early on, we traveled by train, and I just loved it. And it became a professional interest as a journalist as well.
Well, listen, I think it's so fascinating when you say that, because this is the one thing that I always think of when I drive through these small towns, because inevitably you drive through a small town and you see a train station and you think it's not operating currently. Most of them are not doing anything. If they are, there's a train passing through but not stopping. And how many small towns are missing out on economic benefits, be it from tourism, be it from transporting things, because I can't just get on a train and just go to, I don't know, Harrismith if I wanted to, because there isn't a train running.
It's very sad. And when you say there are towns where the trains might go through, there are actually very few trains running at all. And on the passenger side, the long-distance passenger operation, which in South Africa, as you say, every small town had its station, one train a day maybe. Everyone travelled by train. And I would say at a particular point of the day or night, there would be probably dozens of trains operating somewhere in South Africa. Now there are none. There are no long-distance passenger trains at all. You mentioned Rovos Rail in your introduction. They still run, and I think the Blue Train still runs. But these are very high-end luxury trains. They are not trains for the people, which the old South African railways, and which then became Spoornet, it really was it had the reach for the entire country. And you touched on something there. Staring the country in the face was the tourist potential of all these trains going all over the place. And if you think of the country, the Western Cape, the Garden Route, you think of Namaqualand, the Kruger Park, KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape beaches and mountains, all accessible by train or were, and they could have put a wonderful project together of saying, let's gear the trains now to encouraging tourism. It could have been fantastic. Whether they can restore it now, and part of what I say in my initial discussion with the publisher, she said, I don't want to just hear about the decline of the trains. I said, no, this is a story of nostalgia, personal nostalgia. I also worked on the railways, so I write about that. And it's the history of railways in South Africa. And then at the end, I talk about the decline and how things started falling apart to the terrible state that the trains are in now. So it's very sad. It didn't have to be like this.
Well, let's follow a similar recipe then. Let's look at how these extensive rail networks were established. And I mean, South Africa probably, compared to many other countries on the continent, probably has and had some of the most extensive train tracks going almost anywhere and everywhere. And I think this has also got something to do with mining and obviously also the economic movement of people and goods.
Yes, that's right. When it was fully operational, something like 22,000 kilometers of railway line, which is more than the rest of Africa combined. The whole of Africa, not just sub-Saharan, but the whole of Africa. We were the 10th biggest network in the world and one of the most efficient. And it opened up the country. Because if you think of what South Africa was before the discovery of diamonds and gold, it was a rural economy. Far-flung settlements, farmers, not much going on, lots of desert, lots of dry land, and the railways opened up the country. And without the railways, the mines would never have been able to develop as they did. Of course, there's a dark side to that too. There was migrant labor from all the surrounding territories, and apartheid existed on trains too. And so the dark side of it is the rigid apartheid that was enforced on the trains, which reflected the apartheid policies of the government of the day. But economically, there's no question that the railways created South Africa.
Well, I'm chatting to David Williams. He's written a book called On the Railway. I'm going to take a quick small town stop and more right after the break.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Veteran journalist, broadcaster, and lifelong rail enthusiast David Williams has written a book called On the Railway, The Great South African Train Story. And before the break, we spoke about his personal experience as a child with the railways and also the grandeur of South Africa's railways in their heyday when they were performing at their peak. And David, I see in my notes here, there's also reference to a white train. We touched on the Rovos Rail, we touched on the blue train. I had the opportunity to visit the Rail Museum down in George, and I'm sure you've probably been there as well. And I think the white train is actually parked there. Is that right?
Well, I think there might be one coach, one carriage of the white train. So the white train's an interesting story because it was built especially for the royal visit of 1947, when King George, Queen Elizabeth, and the lady who was queen after King George, Queen Elizabeth II, who only died a couple of years ago, and Princess Margaret, they came to South Africa for a 4-month state visit on Prime Minister Smuts's invitation. And this train was specially built and designed for this royal visit, 1947. And they didn't spend all the time on the train, but for 4 months they moved around South Africa on this train, which was painted white with gold lining. It was a beautiful train, beautifully done inside with air conditioning, with wood panels and so on, and a menu to die for. You wouldn't get a menu like that in most restaurants in the world. And they had the best of everything from the railway, the best drivers, the best chief stewards, the best chefs. Everyone was handpicked to serve the royal family on this tour. And it's a fantastic story. The way they would stop at little roadside or line-side stations where they weren't expected to stop, but the engine would stop, and all the people would be gathered at the side of the track just for a glimpse of the royals. And then the royals would come out and greet them, and they caused enormous problems for the scheduling. And they said, no, come on, we've got to get going. We've got to be in East London by such and such a time. So it was a lovely story and a beautifully appointed train, probably the most luxurious train in the world at that time. And after the royal visit, they said, well, what are we going to do with this wonderful train? And it became the Governor-General's train, his official train. So when the Governor-General went down to Parliament from Pretoria, he would travel on the white train, and the ministers and all the senior administrators and officials would also travel on the train. Very elegant way to have the government move from one place to another. The state president took over because the Governor-General was replaced by a state president in 1961, and the presidents used the white train. And then in 1974, the Settlers Monument in Grahamstown, now Makanda, 1820 Settlers Monument was opened. And President Jim Forshire was invited to the opening of the 1820 Settlers Monument. And he said, certainly, and he went by train. So there was that lovely little line from Allisdale through to Grahamstown, and goes on to Port Alfred. And he travelled between these sparkling coaches and magnificent engines polished up for the occasion, and he attended the 1820 Settlers Monument opening. And the white train, as always, was magnificent. It was the last time it was used because the next state president didn't want to use it. He said he would fly, and gradually it was broken up, and I think there's not much left of it now except that coach that you mentioned at the Railway Museum in George.
Yeah, I think also in that same museum, there's also some reference to Paul Kruger, who used to move around by train, which I also thought was an interesting way for a statesman to move around, and certainly one of my preferred ways if I had to sort of visit the country, because you can always look out the window and there's always so much to see, especially with South Africa's beautiful landscape.
Yeah, I always say when you're traveling by train, you never know which side of the window to look out because whichever side you're looking at, you're missing the other side. You can't go back. Of course, Paul Kruger had no alternative but Oxwagon or horse and carriage. And of course, there's a whole political dimension because when Cecil Rhodes wanted to build the Cape Railway, they had to go round the Free State and the Transvaal because Kruger refused to let them come straight through the old Transvaal Republic. He wanted and built a railway line to Delagoa Bay, now Maputo, so that the old Transvaal didn't have to be dependent on the British. So there are lots of railway lines which are there for political reasons in the old days, not for economic.
If we look at the rail infrastructure and how critical it is to the movement of people and goods, and maybe now we're even more aware of it now, in a sense that because we don't really have it, we feel it. How important is it, David?
It was extremely important because most people didn't have, in the early years of the century, the 20th century, very few people had their own cars. Or put it this way, many people didn't. And people traveled by train to go on holiday, to get to where they wanted to be. And gradually the road took over from that. It's still crucial, and they are trying to fix it, is the commuter traffic, Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, the daily commuters coming into the city and coming to work from home. That is still vital, and they're trying to fix it to get more people into the trains and off the road. On the national network, so much of the goods traffic has gone to road, it's going to be very difficult to get it back. And there's a real possibility that Transnet will never get back to anything like the structure and the reach that it had. So what's happened is that the roads have replaced the railways, certainly for passengers on long distance, and a lot of goods has gone to the road. So, for example, rail is ideal for heavy, high-volume traffic. So coal, iron ore, timber, those and liquid fuel, those things are ideal for rail. If you think of the highways to Cape Town and Durban from Johannesburg, 100 trucks is the equivalent of one train. And those trucks are just destroying the roads. The trouble is that the economy has adapted, and it's going to be quite difficult to get that traffic back. Plus, of course, Transnet owes so much money, it's not getting very much revenue. So it's in the classic case of a business that's declined and has not enough revenue to fix itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I took a drive down to the Drakensberg on the N3 not so long ago, and the amount of trucks that are on the road is absolutely incredible. But also, once again, if you then superimpose, experiences like traveling through Switzerland or through Italy, where you can take a high-speed train between Rome and Milan, it takes you 3 hours to get from one city to another, and you think, wow, imagine we had a high-speed train to Durban or Cape Town where it takes you 3 hours. You don't have to get there 2 hours before to check in your luggage and security checks and whatever else. You could just get on a train and be in Cape Town within 3-4 hours and jet through the Karoo. What a setup that would be, and I can't imagine that not somehow contributing greatly to the GDP and the economy.
It would. My view is that it's not needed for it to be effective. If you think of the Johannesburg-Durban travel time for the classic expresses was 12 hours. So you'd get on the train at 6 o'clock at night, you'd have dinner, you'd sleep on the train, have breakfast the next morning, and you get to Durban or Johannesburg. You're not wasting time. You're just spending a night somewhere else, and you're doing your work. Also, it'd be very expensive to put a high-speed train from Johannesburg to Durban because we're 6,000 feet up in 2,000 meters above sea level. Very difficult with the mountains and the escarpment to build a high-speed train. It would be nice in many ways. It would cost a fortune, which we don't have. What would be good is if they just get the trains to run as they did before, which was perfectly adequate for everyone's needs.
Well, I think there used to be a daily train from Park Station in Johannesburg to Maputo that you could take, which is, I mean, like you say, I mean, even that would be good.
Well, it was spokes of a wheel. So every day from Johannesburg, you could catch a train to Cape Town, to Durban, East London, Port Elizabeth, Maputo, Polokwane, all of these lines at least once a day. And on some of them, there were 3 or 4 trains a day, passenger trains, in between all the goods trains. So it really was, and I think people now don't realize how big the reach was and how efficient it was, and not that expensive.
Well, if this has whet your appetite and you romanticize about the railways, and maybe we live long enough to see the rebirth of the railways in South Africa, well, grab a copy of On the Railway, the Great South African Train Story, available at all good bookstores and, of course, online. And David Williams, the author, many thanks for making the time to chat about all things railways.
Thanks, Alexander. I didn't know that you were a railway fan as well, so I would have talked to you previously about this if I'd known.
I'm glad we had a chance to do it now, David. It's been an absolute pleasure, and more after the break. Stay right where you are.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
And as we move into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner, and let me remind you, if there was anything that you heard on the show and you really wanted to find out a little bit more, we'll hop onto the website and check out the show notes that we get up onto the site as soon as we can, which will give you more reading pleasure, links, more background, other things to explore, and so much more. So don't worry, if you heard something and missed the details, you can catch it online. Also, be sure to check out our social media accounts for more media and maybe some pictures and some videos that fill in the blanks. And you can also connect on the WhatsApp line 084 Sandton, that's 084 726 3866, and feel free to send through your voice notes, text messages, and more. As always, every week we link up with our entertainment commentator Tat Wolfen to talk all things leisure and viewing. And Tat, you recently attended a NuMetro showcase.
Hi, Alex. Yeah, and I think you know that I'm a great champion of the cinema experience.
Yes.
So I was incredibly excited to be there because, after the lockdowns, I can tell you, during the lockdowns, I thought that's it. Live theatre is finished. It's closed. It'll never happen again. And I thought that the cinemas might limp through, but they may have to close half their theatres. So I was very excited to hear from NuMetro that they've actually, not only have they recently opened Bedford Square, their boutique Cineplex there, I spoke about, but they've also got like 5 new Cineplexes on the way. They've taken over Gateway, and they're opening at Cavendish, Riverside, Tiger Valley, Mimosa. So they are going full out. The confidence is there. The belief in the medium of cinema is there. And in fact, at Gateway, they're going to be the first cinema on the continent that's going to have what they call a Screen X cinema, which is where the screen extends 270 degrees. So it spills off to the left and the right onto the walls pretty much of the cinema. I can't review it yet because I haven't seen it yet, but I believe they're also planning to put one in at Canal Walk in future and maybe bring one to Joburg as well. But if that doesn't show you confidence in the future of cinema, nothing does. Because, there's all these naysayers that say, oh, cinema's dead. Well, let me remind everyone that when TV first arrived in the States in the 1930s, people were going, although in a different accent, they were saying, cinema is dead. And then when color TV arrived in the 50s, they said cinema is dead. And when home movies, VHS and then DVD or whatever, they said that cinema was dead. So the naysayers will always be in the corner like Eeyore saying that cinema is dead. But it's never going to be dead because it's a magical experience, as you know. You're sitting with a bunch of other people and you're laughing with them, or maybe shedding a tear with them, or sitting on the edge of your seat with them. And there is something about that experience. And I think that cinema is the modern day equivalent of when the cavemen used to sit around the campfire, and the caveman leader would tell this gripping story of how he killed a mammoth or whatever they did in those days. And I don't think they had mammoth then, but whatever they had then, So he'd be telling this exciting story, and everyone would be leaning forward on their rocks with excitement. And that is where we're at now. Technologically, things have certainly improved, but it's still that thing of someone telling a story and a bunch of people sitting together excitedly, swallowing the story, taking the story in. So, and at this, I'm going to call it a bosberaad, okay? But at this thingy that we had with NuMetro, they gave us all sorts of figures. And we could just see that not only are we currently now, we're at about 75% of the business that cinemas were making before the lockdowns. So I think it's a damn good revival figure. But the good news is that these figures keep climbing. So it just keeps going and keeps going. And it's funny, you know, when people, I mean, you're always again going to hear the naysayers who say, oh, we don't go to movies, or we go once a year, whatever. There are actually something like 4.6 million South Africans who go to movies at least 6 times a year. And there are over 2 million South Africans who go at least once a month. Okay. So millions of people are still going to the movies. It isn't just one sector, one sort of ethnic group within the population that's going to movies. It's kind of gone across the board. You know, what excites me, again, as a cinema fanatic, is that the technology is just climbing and they're doing all these exciting things. Now, you know that I've spoken about 4DX before, which is what the brand that NuMetro has licensed to. You know, where the seats move and you get the smells and the wind and the fog and all that kind of stuff. Well, NuMetro currently has 6 4DX cinemas open, and they're going to be opening one at Gateway. And I think there's another one in its future, in the near future. And those cinemas, let me tell you, a regular cinema these days is expensive. Just the projector cost a fortune. And then comes the sound system and the seating. So cinemas are a very expensive business. So you must know they are now opening another 4DX cinema at Gateway, as well as the Screen X. You have to know that they believe in their product. It's not just talk. So, you know, and amongst the other things that they told us was that their Scene Extreme theatre at Emperor's Palace has the most powerful Dolby Atmos sound system, again, on I nearly said on the planet. Well, almost, but on this continent. It's got the most powerful. And, you know, I love that Emperor's Palace Scene Extreme, and I haven't been in a while. I really need to go again soon, because it's got the huge screen, which all the Scene Extremes have. It also has a really good rake. Now, for me, that's a big thing in a cinema. You know, a rake is the steepness of the seating, right? In the States, they call it stadium seating, when you have that steep slant of the seats. And that's important because, firstly, if you're a shortish person, which I am, you don't want to have someone's head in front of you. But for me, the most important thing about a steep rake is that it pushes you into the screen. It pushes you into the action, you know. So it's for me, it's part of the package for a perfect cinema is good steep raking. So at Emperor's Scene Extreme, and even the other Scene Extremes I've been to, one of them would be the Clearwater Cinema on the West Rand, also has a steep rake, you know, also has good Atmos sound, big screen. Now, all of those things really add impact, you know, visceral impact to your cinema going experience. Now, unless you're hell of a wealthy, you do not have a screen that size at home. You don't even have a screen the size of in the smaller theaters. In the smaller theaters, the screens may look small, but if you try to import those screens into your lounge, you might notice that they're still pretty damn big. So, you know, you don't have that in your house. You don't have Dolby Atmos, and you certainly don't have 4DX in your house or Screen X. I'm going to be here waving the flag for cinema as long as I can stand. And I was so enthused at this event of theirs, because when you hear all these people going, oh, cinemas are closing, well, actually, they don't seem to be. They don't seem to be at all. I mean, if you're opening that many new complexes over this coming year, then my guess is that you have confidence in what you're doing. Listen, the money guys are not going to put money down if they think you're talking nonsense. It's all systems go, and I'm happy.
And it sounds like NuMetro's leading the pack here when it comes to the cinema experience in South Africa. I know we've spoken about them quite extensively. I also had a look at that screen that you described, which is opening up in Durban. Quite a fascinating piece of technology, that with the peripheral view screens as well. And Tat, it's always good to catch up with you. Let's not forget to remind everybody that if you want to get some more regular entertainment updates, what's on at the theatre, what's on at the movies, don't forget to check in on the Sandton Times website whenever you get a chance during the week. And Tat Wolfen, good to touch base with you again, and we're going to do it all again next week.
You know, I could go on forever talking about cinemas. So, yeah, it's always good to be on the show, Alex, and we'll catch you next week.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
Well, if you thought healthy living was all about boiled broccoli and bland tofu, well, think again. We're talking camel milk lattes, powdered peanut butter with 90% less fat, and the kind of gluten-free baked goods that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about healthy and clean eating. Yes, the Good Life Show 2025 is back, and it's bigger, bolder, and greener than ever. With just a few days to go until the ultimate celebration of food, drink, and conscious living in Johannesburg this August, the buzz is certainly real. And joining us to chat about what not to miss, the highlights, and how to make the most of the sensory playground for the health curious and food obsessed is Heidi Warricker. She's the event director of the Good Life Show. And Heidi, it's good to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Fantastic, Alex. Thank you so much for having us on your program.
Well, let's get into the basics here. I mean, for those people who've never been to the Good Life Show before and have got either preconceived ideas or no idea at all, what makes this different to your average foodie, food, health and wellness expo?
Right. So, Alex, first of all, we're in our 5th year, and the Good Life Show has become South Africa's leading event for food, drink, wellness, and conscious living. And what makes it different? Well, there's so much to be excited about this event. We've curated a fresh, dynamic mix of exhibitors and experiences that really reflect how fast the conscious living space is evolving. And we have a host of really exciting features at the event. Well, we designed the program to be a fully immersive experience. And this year's lineup is more exciting and diverse than ever. I mean, obviously, every year, you go bigger, better, bolder, and greener, as you've just said. Mm-hmm. And one of the centerpieces is the Woolworths Good Life Kitchen, where top chefs and food innovators take the stage, live demos that are inspiring as well as delicious. And they'll be showcasing, our talent will be showcasing anything from plant-based dishes to future-forward food ideas and healthy and nutritious dishes. And we've also got masterclasses where visitors can roll up their sleeves and get hands-on with expert-led sessions, everything in mixology to fermentation, conscious cooking, and so much more. And of course, the heart of the show is the incredible variety of exhibitors. We've got cutting-edge food and drink brands to natural beauty to health products, lifestyle innovations, and sustainable solutions. So visitors get the opportunity to meet the makers, meet these incredible producers behind these products, to try the products, to buy the products, to ask questions and discover all these exciting new favorites. So, yeah, the Good Life Show is engaging, interactive, and full of inspiration, whether you're in the industry, food service or retail, or just passionate about living well and discovering exciting new foodie products.
Well, the show's on from the 1st to the 3rd of August at the Kyalami International Convention Center, if people are taking notes and you want to go have a look. But Heidi, what kind of trend or movement have you seen in more people embracing, let's call it, alternative options when it comes to things like milk or sweeteners or, carbohydrates or gluten and anything to do with wellness? You've clearly seen that this must have been growing. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have kept the show going.
Absolutely, Alex. I mean, the biggest shift is how proactive people have become about their health and well-being. And it's no longer just about what's trending. People want to know what's in their food or in their products, in their beauty products, where it comes from, how it's made, and how it affects them, and of course the planet. So they're more informed, they're more intentional, and more connected to their values, and they want their choices to reflect that in their food and in what they're consuming, in skincare and home products, and even how they shop. So the Good Life Show meets people right where they're at, curious, conscious, and ready to do better.
There's clearly also like an eco-consciousness or a sustainability theme that obviously runs through this as part of the Good Life Show. Does that filter through to also having to plan and execute this show as well? I mean, have you got sort of eco-conscious decisions that you have to make when planning a show like this?
Absolutely, 100%, Alex, and also eco-conscious partners. We've got over 60 brand sponsors, strategic partners, and media partners involved in the event, and a host of partners that support sustainability and food waste. I mean, we've got the likes of Earth Bokashi, who are leading the way in home composting, and our brands. The products that come onto the show have to fulfill a set of requirements. They need to be, ethically sourced and sustainable, etc., etc. So when you come through to the show, these brands and products are aligned with the ethos of the Good Life show.
Is there anything particular that is a standout feature or a standout item that you've picked up on? I mean, I know we spoke about camel milk and powdered peanut butter, but is there anything else that you found this year that you found particularly intriguing or interesting?
Goodness me, I mean, so many. Just to mention a few, we've got African marmalade, spotlighting indigenous African superfoods.
Okay.
We've got clean beauty innovators showcasing indigenous oils, botanical hydrosols, and nutrient-rich butters. I mean, the likes of Lola & Co, Organics, Organic SA, Delightful Glam, Skim, etc. And more natural wellness products. There's Lady Bee Naturals with wild-crafted sea moss. There's the vegetable basket with wholesome meat-free options. We've got a lineup of natural elixirs and gut-loving adaptogen shots, functional mushrooms. I mean, as you mentioned, powdered peanut butter, cutting-edge acupressure solutions, and gluten-free and gut-friendly solutions, and really so much more, Alex. There's an exciting variety of fresh, exciting producers and a platform that's really full of surprising content.
Goodness. Well, listen, as somebody who's got an eagle-eye view of the entire event, do you have any hot tips for making the most of a visit if someone decides to go along and try and see all these things?
Well, Alex, most certainly follow us on our socials at Good Life Show Africa, or visit our website, goodlifeshowafrica.com, for all the updates and program information. I mean, I didn't mention to you the culinary lineup, the talent that will be in the masterclasses and the Good Life Kitchen. The likes of MasterChef SA winner from 2024, Bridget Mangwandi. We've got Chef Absa, who is known for his vibrant seasonal plant-based dishes. We've got Chef of the Year, Joe Richter, in the program. We've got Nikki Brighton, who champions regenerative food systems. We've got Zimbabwean Zororo Taruvinga, who's known for innovative wellness-focused recipes. Jenny Morris, Giggling Gourmet, always a crowd pleaser.
Yes.
And
Jenny.
We've got international, absolutely wonderful Jenny. And we've also got UK-based Michelin-trained chef Jamison Stocks. And we've got a mixologist as well, a top mixologist, well, a few of them actually, but one to note is Mia Lopsha, seasoned mixologist and specialist beverage consultant. So a fresh, diverse take, I mean, on sustainability and food, on beverages, and come and experience this incredible curated mix of leading chefs, mixologists, wellness experts, and pioneering brands, offering something for everyone.
Well,
really.
Tremendous. Well, there you have it. The Good Life Show 2025. It's on from the 1st to the 3rd of August at the Kailami International Convention Center. We'll also put some details up on the website if you want to find out a little bit more. And Heidi Warricker, event director of the Good Life Show, it's been such a pleasure having you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex. It's been a pleasure.
And that's a wrap for the Sandton Times Hour for another week. Feel free to send through your questions or comments. You can use email editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times, or hop onto the website www.sandtontimes.co.za. You can also use the WhatsApp line 084 Sandton. That's our exclusive WhatsApp line for the Sandton Times, 084 726 3866, and send through your voice notes, your questions, and of course your videos, or whatever other media you might want to share, and we might read it out and play it on a future show. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast platform, and get the Sandton Times on your device whenever and listen to it wherever. And you can join the growing community right there. Thank you to all our guests who made the time to be on the show this week, and of course the team behind the scenes pulling it all together and making sure that we come to you as we do on a weekly basis. A special thank you to you for listening, and God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.